Hi Chad, how are you doing today? So, 5 minutes over the time, I think can start. So yeah, welcome to the second live streaming session about NGINX Unit. If you have missed the first one from Tuesday, we covered the basic installation of NGINX Unit on a Debian 10 system, and today we want to install CakePHP, a PHP framework, on top of NGINX Unit. Right, so that's what we're going to do today. If you want to follow the session and doing the same things on your system, you need probably Unit server up and running with the PHP module installed. And that's basically it. We will install the CakePHP app with Composer. We'll download Composer, so you can basically just follow along the session. All right, so I have just prepared a couple of things in beforehand. So I started where we left off last session on Tuesday with a demo PHP application running on Unit. Is it 8090? So yeah, so this is basically the application from last time, and we have the unit specification file, which is like describing, so it is 8090, which describes the application with the listeners, the routes, the application itself. So yeah, that's what we have right now. Yeah, so I have changed something. So this is PHP app 1 web. There you go. This is apps PHP app 1 web. Direct index apps. All right, so yeah, so the unit spec file is probably a JSON file that includes everything in one file: a listener, a route, the application object itself, and then I'm using the the unit CLI to apply the configuration to Unit. So the unit CLI is something I've built and shared on GitHub. So if you want to check it out, it's really in an early beta state right now. So it's under my repository, or under my username and then unit CLI. As I said, I changed something today and will push to Git later after that session. So feel free to check it out, unit CLI. Yeah, to have the CLI on your system. So it's saying 80p 500 because we have to change the paths here. Home directory, apps, PHP app 1. So that's fine. Go in here. So we can say is use CLI for unit CLI and then apply the uspec.json. So, and this will do basically applying the unit app spec or the unit spec application config, the routes and the listeners. And now we should be able to see, yeah, the unit demo running on port 8090. All right, so this was basically a catch up from the stuff last week. So we have a basic PHP application up and running and a very short introduction of the unit CLI. So again, the repository or the project name is unit CLI on GitHub. Let me just send that to the chat later. So it's tibx/unit-cli. All right. So let's get started with CakePHP. So I think most of you are familiar with CakePHP as a PHP framework. Can't type today. So let's check that out. CakePHP 4. Welcome. All right. Okay, so getting help, first steps, quick start guide, that should be fine. I think there is a getting CakePHP, yes. And there is the composer stuff. Using composer, self-update. All right, good. So, as I mentioned on Tuesday, I've not done anything special after that. So I'm pretty sure we will run in some problems and issues at this time because we haven't done any additional PHP stuff on this system. So there's no PDO, there's no MySQL. Oh, I see I missed to install Docker as well to have a database for CakePHP. So as you see, we will do a lot of basic stuff. We'll cover a lot of basic things, including Docker and hosting a MySQL database to use it with CakePHP. So that will be fun. All right, so get rid of this one and start from here. And let's create first of all, where I am, home, Hex1, apps. It's basically fine. So let's use, let's get the composer far in here. All right, so basically what that will do is it will curl or it'll download the composer far, which is a PHP executable format, and put it inside of this directory, current directory. I mean, we can now do something like make it globally available or stuff like that, but for now it's good as it is. So then we are calling composer far. We create a project, CakePHP app4, and CMS will be the directory. Let's call it CMS. Why not? So PHP composer far, create a project, CakePHP4, CMS. Should be fine. So let's see what this thing is saying. I'm pretty sure we will run in some issues because of missing PHP packages. Yep, there you go. So Intel is missing. And there's no PHP zip and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and do this and say sudo apt install PHP. So this thing, there you go. Yes. All right, so let's do is not empty. Can I override this somehow? No progress, secure, custom, no dev, source. Let's get rid of it. But there should be an option how to kind of override existing files. Yeah, as I said, I'm pretty sure we'll run in different errors here because of missing dependencies, but I will not install them right now. I will check the errors here and then we can install. So mbstring is a thing. All right, cool. So let's say sudo apt install php mbstring. Is that a thing? All right, so this is a thing. So let me Google that real quick. If anybody knows this, paste it in the chat, but how can I... Oh, my composer self-update. Because the project already created. So when I do... What do we have here? We have a composer.json. So where is my composer for? This is the composer.json. So let's do this. We have the composer for, and then we can specify a composer file here. Config options, global, allow running commands. Where is the updates composer file to the latest version? That's fine. How can I open the packet? How can I say that? How can I say? Composer far. Is this a thing? Yep, that's what I want. Cannot find composer file in. Right, but how can I specify the file for composer? Set file path. Is that a thing? No, that's not a thing. Yep. I think it's something. Composer is composer other JSON composer for install. That sounds what we want. Composer equal to CMS composer.json PHP composer for install. All right, that works. So basically it's telling us that we do not have the PHP curl extension enabled. Yeah, that's because we haven't even installed this stuff. So it requires xdom, find, and curl. Great. So sudo apt install PHP. Is that a thing? Oh, that's a good question. Let's do this. This is a thing. There you go. Cool. So let's install DOM extension. Yeah, this is one of the last pieces, the PHP unit test framework. So with the tests in CakePHP are written with PHP unit, and that requires another extension. But now I'm pretty sure that should work. Awesome. So let's do a little recap of what we have just installed. If this works, it works. So let's do a history pipe grab apt install here. All right, so what we just installed is PHP, the plain version of PHP, which comes with unit. So it was apt install PHP or unit and unit PHP. And then after that, to make CakePHP work, we need at least, to do the composer stuff, Intel extension, MB string, curl, DOM, and that's it for now. We will need, depending on the database system you want to use, something like PDO, MySQL, Postgres, whatever. But this is at a later point. All we wanted to do now is to install CakePHP with Composer, get this stuff on the system, and now we configure unit, and then we will see what else we need. Good. All right, so let's see what we have here. We have a CMS directory. That's good. That looks good. So now what we need is, let's try to configure unit with this. So let me copy over PHP app1, the Unix spec file, into my CMS system. And then just edit the Unix spec.json. Why is Sublime not a thing? Oh, dump it's subl instead of supl. Use spec.json. All right, so let's make this listen on port 8080. Let's make this port 8080. All right, so, and this is not PHP app, let's call that CMS. Something is going on with my VM here. Something is going on with my VM. Oh, that's why. Cool. So routes, then we have the CMS. So we want to have a route called CMS. So let's do this. Let's call that CMS. So let's see what we have here. The match URI means if a request comes in where the URI is basically just the stuff after the host, if you want, contains something like star.php or star.php/something. We want to pass this request to application. Let's name that CMS. And this /direct is called a target. And down here in our application, let's call the application CMS as well, we have a target direct, and it's basically just sharing everything that's, or yeah, it's sending the request to this directory and executes the PHP file specified. If it can find the PHP file, it will return a 404. All right, so apps, and then it calls CMS. And I think it's still webroot. It is. So we want to make sure that we link the webroot of the CakePHP project in Unit. So it's not the root folder, the CMS folder itself, but it is the webroot folder. And this webroot folder, let's see what's in here, has a couple of static files like fonts, images, CSS, and the index.php file. So and that's basically exactly what we want to do here. We want to say this is application CMS direct, perfect. Then we have home, user, apps, CMS, webroot. And then we have the index is apps, PHP, CMS, webroot. So this is these targets here are very important because they work together with the route object we have just specified here. So we have the application CMS direct, and then we have a share and a fallback. So that means for the static files, JavaScript files, images, CSS, we want to send those files directly to the client. And to do this, we have to specify a share object. So that means we're trying to find the file, the static file located in this directory. If you're able to find this file, great, send it to the client. If we cannot find this file, we use the fallback, which is this index location down here. So home hex1, apps, then it's CMS, and it is webroot, application, CMS, index. Cool. All right. That should be it. So the good thing here is that we have now one file that includes everything. We can close this one. Let's go in here. Sudo use CLI apply usespec.json. That works. So this is the good thing on the unit CLI. We can just call it once, and there's no need of calling the config endpoint of unit multiple times. So that means we should now be able to see something on port 8080. So let's see. Is there anything else? Checking our installation. Creating database, next step. So let's do curl localhost port 8080. So this was a 500. So as there is a 500, let's have a look inside of our unit log, which is in var log unit.log. Warning. Fatal error, unknown fail required home hex1 apps web index.php. No such file or directory. So there's something wrong here. Oh, I think I see what's wrong here. So this is all hex1, which is from. So let's see if we have the right. We have the right permissions. see what this thing is saying again. This was old. Looks like see, what was this timestamp? That was old. So the PHP app application was started fine, and the CMS application had this problem with open required apps, CMS vendor autoload. So let's see. That was apps CMS vendor. Oh, there is. That's the problem. So there is no autoload stuff in the vendors folder. So let's do this. Let's copy that quick into the CMS. Composer for update. Yeah, maybe the trick we have used to tell Composer that the Composer JSON is located somewhere else was not correct. This is much better. That is much better. Cool. All right. So that looks like debugging is not enabled. So that's why we have this internal error occurred, because we cannot connect to a database because there is no database at this point. All right. So let's check what we have in our app configuration. So that is in config. And there is something. So there are two files, the app.php file, which is basically the global config file for our application. Right, so there's debug false based on an environment variable and all that stuff. And in here we have to configure the database and things like that. Security solved, and this is the one file, and there's another one that is called app_local.example.php, and as you can see, it says local configuration file to provide any overrides to your app.php configuration file. So this is like if you have usernames, passwords, security, salt, anything that's something you definitely do not want to check in your Git directory. Because you should never ever check your security, passwords, your sols, anything like that inside into your Git version control. You can use that file, and that will just sit around on the server, and with this file you can override things from the app.php file. So this is pretty handy. But another cool feature here is, for example, that we have here something like env for environment, debug, and the default one is false. So that means what we can do now with NGINX Unit is we can specify an environment variable called debug, and then we can override this value to true. Then we will be able to see what's the problem right now. I think it's because of a missing database. So let's do this. So environments in Unit can be created very easy. We can do this with our app spec file or with a unit spec. So let's call for the uspec JSON, And in here, we have our run user, our run group, and then we can say environment, comma. All right, so, and it was debug, all capital letters, and it was true. So save it. And the only thing we have to do right now is we call the use CLI apply, and this will just reconfigure our app server. And here we are. So we enable the debug mode, and one argument passed to salt, but must be a type of string, null given. All right, so that means there is no salt at this point. Well, which is fair enough. The salt is used for a couple of things. Most commonly used for salting passwords. So as the app local is with this .example.php, it will not be considered as as a valid configuration file. To make it used by CakePHP, we should rename it and say app_local.php without the example. Great. So the security sol, as you can see, there is no default value here. So that's why it is empty. So let's use our unit spec file again to set a security salt. So let's copy the name of the environment. Go in here, let's say we want to have the security salt. Let's say something that should be changed. Yeah, so make sure that this is a secure random generated salt in your production environment, as this is not really secure. Okay, so let's do this again. Reconfiguration done. All right, so let's see. Cool. Okay. Another one. Database driver. As I said, MySQL cannot be used due to missing PHP extension. Fair enough. We haven't installed MySQL. We haven't installed any PDO. But that's exactly the case. I do not want to install everything up front and everything is magically working. And if you try to follow this on your system, you will end up in a situation where libraries are not present, dependencies are not resolved, things like that. So that's definitely the reason why I wanted to do this step by step. All right, so sudo apt. We can search for PHP MySQL. This should be a thing. And let's see if PDO is the thing as well. Nope. I think. So let's install MySQL first. Oops. Install PHP MySQL. Yes. Reconfiguring, cool. So it is possible. This is interesting. So let's see if we have to reload the application. That's the thing. PDO underscore MySQL. So let's search for this one. Is that a thing? Grab. Okay, so this is my SQL, this is this one, so let's see, where is the PDO? Nope. The database where we're going to use MySQL, you need to know, fair enough. Also make sure that you have PDO MySQL enabled in PHP. I thought it was something like PHP PDO. Something slows down my entire VM. So let's see. Yes, that's what we want. Installation. Right, this is for configure. So if we configure or building PHP from source, we can say with PDO MySQL, and this will create the necessary shared objects and stuff. But at this point, I want to know the package name. What's the package name? MySQL ND is the default library. So what is the default package name? Debian PHP MySQL. So let's do one thing. So PDO MySQL, it is here. So PHP-m prints out the currently available modules, and MySQL ND is the old one. Fair enough. PDO MySQL is here. That's great. Cool. So it is here. It comes with MySQL. So we did everything right at this point. So why is that thing extension human dependency? All right, so let's check the configuration we have one more time. I think the problem is that we haven't even specified. So this is the cache. Where is the database stuff? Error, debugger, email, data source, default. Connection, MySQL, driver. So there is something configured. But I have a feeling that we have to reload the application completely to make it work. So, and there's one interesting thing. In Unit, you cannot easily, let's say this, type something like unit restart your application. This is not a thing. So you cannot reload your application just by typing a reload command, but Unit will be able to change or to reload your application at the point where something changed inside of your application configuration. So that means we could change the salt, which is not a good one, or we can specify something like deployment or version or something that can change without break anything. So let's specify deployment version v.001. Save that and do the app spec thing again. So reconfiguration is done. So this is a completely different story. This is missing data source. All right. But yeah, that was, so that means I was correct. So having unit in place, spotting there is a missing dependency for whatever reason, then you can install the missing dependency by apt install using the package name, but then you have to reload the application. Again, this will not shut down your application. This will not break your application. But you have to reload, and to make it work, to reload, you have to specify something that is different from the last time you reloaded your application. So something like deployment version 001, change that to 002. That's totally fine. That will do the trick. So that works. Cool, so it is reloaded. So then what's next? It's telling us we have a missing data source, which is totally fair enough because we haven't even specified anything. But this is weird. This is Debug Kit. Was not found in config app.php. Data source configuration Debug Kit. The Debug Kit is something that uses SQLite. That uses SQLite to print debug information when you enable, or as soon as you enable the debug stuff on the system. So let's see if we have in webroot. So in vendor, oops, there should be the Debug Kit. Or let's do the official way. Let's use Sublime and see the composer JSON and check what's in here. So yeah, the Debug Kit is installed. That's good. And the Debug Kit uses SQLite, as far as I know. So let's see. If install PHP SQL, this is a thing? This is a thing? So let's check. All right, this is how we want. It was composer, it was the app, using good. Basic PHP knowledge is great, that's what we have. PDO is working. But this error here, this is because Debug Kit. Missing data source configuration for Debug Kit was not found. No, first of all, the Debug Kit does not have a database configuration in the app folder or in the app file. The Debug Kit comes with its own configuration inside of the vendors folder created by the composer install command. So let's see. PHP SQLite. There is something. PHP SQLite. SQLite 3. So let's give this a shot. If this is a thing. Up search PHP/SQLite. Yep, that's a thing. So let's do this. PHP, oops, SQLite 3. Oops, typo, SQLite 3. So again, after doing something like this, it shouldn't take long. There you go. So after doing something like this, installing another extension, another package, we have to reload the application. So let's say 02 here. And then type something like UCLI appspec. So this is something like reload the FPM process, the fast process manager of PHP service, restart PHP FPM. With this, we can reload the application, but the good thing is we will not have any impact in front of the customer. So we will not crash the app or shut it down for a second. It will continue to work. This looks much better. Okay, so let's recap what we have just done. We need SQLite to have the Debug Kit working. As I said, the Debug Kit in CakePHP is pretty useful. It's a very great little extension where you can see what is the current environment, what's in there, what are my routes, what are my requests, what are packages, and queries you send against the database and stuff like that. So this is pretty handy, but it requires SQLite as the debug information of the Debug Kit, or anything that's like used with the Debug Kit, is stored in a separate database in SQLite. SQLite is a different database tool, something like MySQL, but it's all file-based. There's no installation needed. So there's no DBMS installed on the system like Oracle or MySQL or MariaDB Postgres. It's a file-based database system if you want. But you need the PHP module to work with SQLite. So this is important. We have to install SQLite as well to make the Debug Kit working. All right, so let's recap this in the history. And let's grab apt install one more time. All right, so PHP SQLite 3, PHP MySQL will ship the PDOs module, or will ship the PDO module alongside, so there's no such thing to call MySQL PDO separately. PHP DOM, PHP curl, MB string, and Intel. So those are the current modules, or the at least required modules to make CakePHP working with NGINX Unit if you have a really vanilla based system without anything on it. Intel, MB string, curl DOM, SQLite 3, and MySQL in case you want to use MariaDB or MySQL as a database, and that's what we're going to do now. So this looks much better. So then it's saying, please change the value of security salt in config app to random value of at least 32 characters long. All right, so let's fix that error. So the app.php file, remember, had a salt environment variable at the very top, and it called salt security salt. So let's go in our app spec, and it is, but this is not 32 characters long. It is just 28 characters long. So let's do that and do something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is now 32. So again, make sure that you change this to really secure random string. for your production environments, and not something that should be changed or whatever. So this is now 34 characters long. And now we have to reload our application configuration into Unit with our CLI. That worked. So let's see. Much better. So salt is gone, Debug Kit is enabled and loaded due to SQLite, which is awesome. Temp directory writable, log directory writable, PHP version and B string, OpenSSL is the thing, Intel is the thing, 7.2 or higher. This is the default version of Debian 10, 7.3. All right, so now we have a database connection issue. All right, so that's obvious because we haven't even installed a DBMS. So we can install a DBMS on various different ways. We can have it on a different server. We can use a cloud managed DBMS instance. Or if we want to do something on the machine, we can install it on the same machine by apt install MySQL, for example. Or if you want to use Docker, for example, you can use Docker to spin up a database. So again, this is a really vanilla instance without anything on it, not even Docker. So let's install Docker on Debian. All right. So this shouldn't take longer than 2 minutes. So installation methods. We want to set up the repository. So let me make this a little bit bigger. So apt transport HTTPS, CA certificates, curl is installed. So let's grab this stuff here. So those are basically pre-requirements to install or to move on in the install process. So let's do this. So curl is already installed. As you can see, already installed newest version, already installed. All right. So now the same thing here. We have to add the Docker key, the signing key, the repository. That's fine. So this will add, what is this thing? Yep. So this is like creating a file called docker.list in the apt sources directory. So this is if you want the auto configuration to where to get bind the packages from. So let's have a look inside this thing. I should do this with sudo docker list. Cool. So it's in. So then we need to update to load the new repositories. Then we can go ahead and install the Docker Community Edition, the Docker Community Edition CLI, and the runtime container DIO. All right. So let's type sudo apt update and then apt install docker. There you go. All right. So yes, I want to do this. It's loading. Cold coffee. All right. Let's give this one more minute. Oh, let's search in the meantime. Let's search for in the Docker Hub for Docker Hub MariaDB. So I excuse my typing today. This is so Docker Hub is like a it's a website where you can find the most of the Docker images around with very, very useful instructions about how to run a Docker image. So let's see. Docker run port 3306 default MySQL MariaDB port. Name is the name of the running container instance. MySQL root password, which is this, and then MariaDB tag. This looks something we can use on our development environment to run a database. MariaDB tag, let's see what are the latest version. So we can use latest as always, something like :latest, or 10.5. So let's go ahead and use 10.5. So that looks good. So let's copy this one. All right, so let's see if the service is started. libsystemd system docker.service creates symlink. So let's bin system control status containerd.service. This looks good. And the other one is docker.service. So containerd is like the container runtime, so the thing that runs actually your container, and Docker is the engine or the echoes. If you want the main service to handle all the Docker commands, you just kick off with the CLI, and the CLI should also be installed by Docker V. We should see the Docker version. It's all good. Cool. So perfect. So let's give this a try. Docker run port. Localhost is fine. So if you specify something like 127.0.0.1 port 3306, the port 3306 will just be available locally. If you get rid of this, then you have still to expose it, but then other IP addresses than localhost can connect to port 3306. So the name, let's call that MariaDB. The MySQL root password is great. So let's go ahead and use something like secret and 10.5. So again, make sure if you do this on your production instance, there are a couple of other things you should definitely consider using MariaDB in a Docker container on a production instance. I will not cover this in this video today. We definitely can do another one. Flag, unknown flag port. Name ed. Oh yeah, sudo. Okay, so unable to find image locally is fine. As it is a vanilla system, now we are pulling down an image from the remote registry, which is per default Docker Hub. I think I should do a live stream about Docker at some day, as Docker is absolutely great and awesome. Love it. Especially for things like that. Easily you can spin on a new database management system, a new version, have MariaDB combined with Postgres on the same instance for testing purposes and all that nerdy stuff. So really love it. So big kudos to Docker for making this possible. All right. So type docker ps again with sudo. So there is a MariaDB instance running on port 3306. Good. All right. So there is no MySQL CLI right now on our server installed, but there is another cool thing I want to show you. You can do docker execute -it for interactive TTY, and then we use the MariaDB container name bin bash boom, oops, again sudo, and now we have an interactive TTY shell inside of the container. And now there is a thing called MySQL user root password, and the password was just secret. Yep. All right, so let's see. Show databases. Databases. Information schema, MySQL performance schema. Cool. So let's create a database. Database CMS. Oh wait, there was just something on the Cake website. Let's go ahead and use. Let's see. Use Cake CMS. Yep, let's do this. Let's call it Cake CMS. Oops. Create database. Shoot. There you go. So let's show databases, and we have Cake CMS. Great. Let's do. So let's keep the MySQL stuff here on the left. Where are we? Here in the CMS folder. Great. And now we can do something. The app.php. So security solve was configured. So let's see what we have in the database section. And I want to use the environment variables managed by unit to connect to the database. All right. So as you see here, there is not even no user, nothing specified, but it is here. So we have a data source. So let's make this a thing. And what we can do now, so we copy the app_local example.php to something like appdev.php. Right, sublime app_dev.php. All right, and now, so we reconfigure this a little bit. So we copy this command, or the env thing, and what we do, we replace all that with our env command, or a function. It's more a function than a command. So the reason for that is that we can now configure our database connection params with NGINX Unit in the app spec file to set environment variables. Yes, so this means that we can configure these connection parameters, the secrets, username, passwords, database name, with environment variables using NGINX Unit. So we do not have the need of having this inside of a configuration file and ship it to Git. We can configure this during runtime on the server. So let's call this app_db_user. Yeah, the default, let's keep that empty. So this one will be app_db_password, and default is empty, and underscore db underscore, I think they're called schema most of the time, so let's call that schema. Cool, save that. So now we go in the app spec and we go right after the secret or the salt. So we had appdb underscore user. So let's use root for now, as it is just for development. Don't do this in production. Don't use your DBA root user in production. Always create a run user on the database and just grant the necessary permissions of the run user to the right schema. Don't use root. Bad behavior, just for development purpose only. DB password, same for password secret. Don't use this in production. appdb schema, that was cake underscore CMS, I believe. All right, appdb user pass schema. All right. So let's check this one more time, right? I think we get rid of this one. So in here, it was appdb schema, it was pass, it was user, localhost is fine, port 3306 is fine. Yeah, schema is PostgreSQL naming. So, but yeah, for environment variable, that should be fine. All right, so let's apply the unit spec. Usespec.sips. Yes, so sudo use CLI -a usespec.json. All right, that works. So let's see. What is not able to connect to the database? Okay. And appdb user, appdb pass, root secret, cake CMS. So let's check this here. Okay. Oh, I remember that error. Yep, I remember that. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I remember this issue from an installation a couple of weeks ago. Localhost was not working, but 127.0.0.1 was working. I never ever checked why that was a thing, but I'm pretty sure it is the same thing here. Nope. Anything here? No. Okay. So then maybe the app underscore def.php is not loaded. So let's check the app.php file, because this is telling us what files will be included. No, it is not. But I know that the CakePHP cookbook is very specific about CakePHP4 app. What is this? CakePHP4 app.conf, oops, app PHP configuration. Because maybe the config app PHP, the config app local file should contain, I think we cannot even say this is app.dev.php, because then we need to specify that we want to load this file explicitly, I guess. So let's move this from app, why is this, .app_dev to app_local, but without example. Yeah, that should work, because let's see. Yes, that works. Great. All right. So it's all green. So the debug kit, so that means Cake is right now installed. It's configured. And yeah, we can potentially start creating controllers. We can create the database. Then we can use CakeBig to create the controllers, models, stuff like that. So basically everything we want, but not in this stream today. So let's recap what we have just done to make sure we cover everything. All right, so we created a directory, first of all. Then we use Composer. To install the whole, or to get the whole CakePHP app on the system. Great, that worked. Then we did the Composer install to install all the required packages. During the install process, we had a couple of issues because of missing PHP dependencies. You will hit this problem once. So the first time you're doing this on a vanilla system, you will have this issue. But that's fine. I mean, then let's do this one more time, the last time, to get the history and grab the apt install command for PHP. Oh, that was in another shell. All right, interesting. So let's zoom this in and do the history in here. All right, so we installed Intel, MB-string, curl, DOM, SQLite 3. SQLite 3 is for Debug Kit. That was the weird error we had in the middle of the stream, that it was showing this data source is not configured for Debug Kit. All right, so PHP SQLite is for the Debug Kit, and Debug Kit is something really great on development server. Be careful enabling the Debug Kit on your production instance, because you can click here and then you can click on environment, and the problem is this will straight where is it? This, all right, it's not printing it out. Maybe because of some missing configuration, but if you have this enabled, it will print out the whole environment right on screen just by clicking on this little Debug Kit icon here, which is not recommended for production use. So make sure you disable the Debug Kit on the production server. But it is great for development. Okay, all right, so those are the dependencies we need to make it work. Right, after that was working, we created our application spec, our unit spec file, which is this one. And let's see this one more time. We have a listener, port 8080. Then we specified the target for this listener, which is a route object called CMS. Then we have the match CRI, so everything that's ending with PHP will send directly to the target direct in our application object. If not, we will try to share local files on disk, like CSS, images, JavaScript files, great. And if we cannot find the file, and it's not starting with or ending with PHP, we will send the request to our fallback location, which is the index target group of our application object. Cool. So then we have the application object. We specify a user, my local user. The type is PHP. We set a couple of environments, our security salt, our database user, password, and schema. Again, root and secret is definitely not recommended for production use. And we specified our target groups. So we have direct and index. Right. So then we use the, oops, that is not VI. Then we use the unit CLI to apply that. Typing sudo use CLI -a usespec.json to configure our unit application server with the unit CLI. So one more time, the unit CLI is something I have created to make my life much more easier with configuring unit, because I don't want to send curl requests all the time by hand. So this is something you will see in the video from Tuesday. If you want, just have a look into the last video. We digged into the curl based configuration in that video. But here I have my unit CLI saying unit CLI for Linux. This is where the current control socket lives, and you can do something like print the current config, apply the unit spec JSON file. By the way, the name is not important. You can specify whatever name you want. Just make sure it is, you link it correct with -a. Oh yeah, there is a --debug option. So let's do this, because this is pretty neat. So you see, this is like the short output, reconfiguration done. But if you want to see what the thing is doing, you can do something like --debug. Oops. I love it. So with --debug, the output will, extended by the actual JSON configuration we are sending to the unit control socket, or to the application server. Without debug, it will just say reconfiguration done, no errors, you're good to go. All right. So and then we installed MariaDB 10.5, running on a Docker container. So again, sudo. Listening on port 3306, which is the default port. And we linked everything together by specifying environment variables to configure our DB user password and schema. And we created a local configuration file in the config, and this one has to be app_local to work automatically. So we changed this a little bit and used the environment here to read the values from our local environment managed by unit. All right, so one last thing I wanted to show you in this video today is, let's have a look on the current running apps under unit. Okay, so we have the CMS and the PHP app, and you can see the run user specified here is at the moment my current user. So this is my local user. If you have used PHP FPM before unit, for example, you will notice there is something like called a app pool. So this is inside the pool D directory. Let me show you this. PHP, there should be something like an FPM. And in here there is a pool directory. Right. So in here, www.conf. So great. Let's have a look inside this one. Yeah, and you should be familiar with this, where you can specify what is the run user in the group, what is the socket location or the port that FPM is listening on, how many processes you want to use, max, min, etc., etc. Here, max children, start service, min spare, max spare. And yeah, I mean, this is all file based, which is good. I mean, I've used PHP FPM for more than 10 years and using NGINX Unit for my PHP applications, for CakePHP as well, since almost 2 years and 5 months, 2 years, 6 months maybe. And the absolutely great thing is that I never ever had this problem of changing stuff inside of the PHP FPM pool configuration file. Because if you want to change, for example, the run user for a given application, you have to specify a new pool file, you have to reconfigure everything, you have to upload it to the instance with SCP or shell or edit it directly on the server, whatever. With NGINX Unit, I can do this directly inside of the unit spec file. So the run user is hex1. You can use whatever run user you want, and I can use the processes, for example. Oops. Let's call it 4. So let me show you this on the documentation on the unit side, because it's always handy to have it. It is not, right, it's not showing that in here, but it is if you go in configuration here, and then go to languages, applications, and there is something for PHP. Scroll down here. So we have the processes thing, 20, user group, options. We have talked about this stuff in the last video on Tuesday. And so I will not talk about this today, but let's spin up a couple more processes. So let's say 5. Save that. So we see, let's do this one more time. Oh, that is still zoomed in, that's why. So let's do this ps elf pipe grab unit. So we see the CMS at the moment is a single process. So we changed the app spec, so now apply that, sudo ucli a unit spec.json -- debug. Let's do this. All right. Let's do this and see. Now we have 5 workers and still have hex1 as a run user. So now let's say we want to change the run user for whatever reason to something else. We can change that in here, apply the configuration, and we are good. So that means no more FPM configuration manually. It can all be handled by unit itself. Right, so now we have 5 processes, and we can check the app, still running. Yes, still there. Cool. Yeah, so this is how easy it is. So you saw there's no manual FPM setup, no installation, no separate service. Everything we need is NGINX Unit, and NGINX Unit will integrate will talk to the server API of PHP, so no FPM setup is needed. Yeah, I hope you liked it. Personally I like it a lot. I like CakePHP, I like Docker, I like Unit, of course. So yeah, that was great. And if you have any questions, feel free to paste it in the chat. follow me on Twitch for the next video on Sunday. There will be some major updates on the unit CLI on GitHub next week. So give it a star, follow and watch it on GitHub. Yeah, to see updates here. Next Sunday, we will talk about NGINX Unit and Let's Encrypt. So what we can do with NGINX Unit to make the integration of Let's Encrypt and certbot very, very easy, and how to secure our application hosting or running on NGINX Unit with proper TLS certificates issued by Let's Encrypt using certbot. So stay tuned for the next session on Sunday. I hope you liked it. Feel free to share feedback, new ideas, questions. And if there are no questions at all, I will be here next Sunday. Looking forward to it. And happy hacking with units. See you on Sunday.